Today we are recording episode number 2, interviewing Lovina Hershberger on this episode number 2, and we just thank you for tuning in. We thank you for watching and all the support that you guys have given us. Also, if you're in the DFW area, go ahead and check out the Amish Roofer at theamishroofer.com. That's also a way that you can support us. We install roofing in the DFW area, and we greatly appreciate you all's support on the channel as well as through the Amish Roofer. I did want to talk about the channel a little bit because some people have asked what's with the name on the channel, and we did make a video about the name, the logo, why we put everything together the way that we did, and we're gonna upload that video here shortly. So be looking for that video. And then also we have some questions that have come in. So thank you for submitting those questions, and thank you for participating in the comments and sharing the podcast. We are so grateful that you guys are doing that. There's a lot of exciting things happening with this podcast on the YouTube channel and even on Facebook, Instagram, all those other platforms. So we appreciate all the support. We really do. It's quite a new journey for us, and for me specifically, I'm talking about us because Lovina is involved in the behind the scenes, and so I'm super thankful for everything that she does, and hopefully you'll continue to see her on the podcast from time to time. So today we're going to jump right into it, and I'll just open it up, I guess, with the question that someone had asked, and it was directed towards you leaving the Amish. Last time we covered a lot about what it's like to leave, and so, but what about after you leave? And then, what's life like after you leave the Amish? You get out, and then what?
I can only speak for myself, but it's a culture shock. It was a culture shock for me.
Okay.
It was.
What do you mean by a culture shock?
Well, you go from this sheltered, in my situation anyways, I went from this sheltered life, not knowing anything about technology or the world in general. I dove right into the world full blast with no idea what to expect or how to even live.
Okay.
And I always say my body went through a depression period, kind of, where I literally was just plain depressed because I had no clue what I was going to do with my life, because I had not planned to be English. I had planned to stay Amish, and then I left the Amish.
There you go, dropping that word.
Y'all can go watch the first episode.
So in the first episode, she mentioned English, and so the Amish refer to anyone that's not within the community, that's outside the community. They refer them as English. I don't know where they come up with the term, but growing up we always said Amish and then English. So anybody outside of the community is considered English, even though it's not.
So if we talk about English people on here, we're not trying to offend anybody. We're just trying to make a difference here. Like, you're not Amish. But
we're pointing out that there's the Amish community, and then there's the outside community of the world, which the Amish refer to as English.
It's English, yeah. So I left, and I had no plans to leave growing up. And then I did leave, and because I had no plans to leave while growing up, I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know what to do. So when I did leave, I was in shock because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what would even happen. A lot of things came from that if I would have known what to expect, my life would have probably gone in a different direction, because I made some mistakes after I left, like anybody does.
So I want to back it up just a little bit, because somebody had also asked, why leave? Why even get out of the Amish community? I feel like we've addressed some of those questions in some of the other interviews, if you're watching all the interviews that we're doing. But for you specifically, why leave the Amish? Like, why get out?
To be really personal about everything, if y'all watched the first episode, you know that I was an Amish school teacher, and I really loved it. And I turned 18 in April, and Amish school term ends in April.
Okay.
And I knew that I couldn't leave, or I told myself I couldn't leave before I'm 18, because 18 is you're of age. You can do your own thing.
Legally speaking.
Legally, yes. In the Amish, it's 21, but legally speaking, 18 is the age where you go on your own. And so that spring, a lot of stuff was happening. I had just broken up with my Amish boyfriend. The school term had just ended, and my dad told me I'm not going to be a school teacher again the next term because they weren't paying enough, and they were expecting me to join church. And I didn't know if I wanted to join. I felt forced. And so my only solution was get out. Get away from it all. So that is what I did. That was the only path I could see anymore that was an option, was to get away from it all. So that's what I did. And I think that was the biggest blessing that has happened to me in a long time, was the fact that I could see that option yet, that I allowed myself to actually see that and just take that opportunity instead of trying to figure something out within the Amish community, because I feel like that could have caused a lot of pain in my life if I would have just gone along with everyone's expectations and just joined church and done everything that they wanted me to do instead of finally doing what I wanted to do.
So that's the main motivator for leaving, is because you felt pressured into joining the church, and then you also felt I'm just rephrasing what I'm hearing from you, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you felt a lack of better words, maybe you felt like you needed more time in the Amish community, you needed more time to decide whether you want to join the church.
Yes.
Or more time to figure out if you want to stay Amish.
Yeah, that's I felt, and they of course would be they weren't going to make me join church, but when you're Amish, there's a lot of peer pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't give in to that peer pressure, they tend to make fun of you for it, or they look at you as kind of an outcast.
Yeah.
So all the other young people my age were joining church.
Yeah.
And so I was naturally if I don't join church, I'm going to be the outcast. And I didn't want that to happen. So I was either I join church or I get completely out where I can't feel their judgment anymore. So I left. They couldn't, I knew they, of course, judged me and everything for that, but I couldn't feel it because I wasn't around them anymore. I didn't have to go to church and see them every Sunday. I couldn't feel it. I knew it was happening, but I didn't care anymore because I wasn't around them.
Yeah, there's just a lot of unspoken rules within the Amish community. One of them is joining the church.
At a certain age.
Yeah, at a certain age. We talked about on the episode with Roman Hershberger, the interview with him. We talked about the difference, the youth and when you become a youth and how you go to singings and all of these different things. But really, 16 and a half is when you start, when you join the youth and you go to these different youth events, basically. And so, but then at 18, a lot of the young folks, they join the church because it takes a little while, and joining the church is a process. And so it takes them a while. I don't know what it is. Is it 6 weeks or something like that?
It's from May to October, or May to September. So, or the beginning of June, end of May, beginning of June to September. So 16 weeks. 16
weeks. See, I have it wrong because I've been out for so long. I don't know if you know this, but I'll share it with the audience. I was such a rebel. Thus is why the name is the Amish Rebel. But I pretended like I was joining church, and I sat in with the deacons one time, just pretending like I was joining church. I had no intentions on doing it, but I did it, and everybody was like, "What?"
When you left.
Well, no, this was before I left.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I did this while I was hardcore in my partying stage. And
so you did that literally just for an adventure.
Yeah, just for an adventure. And,
you had a lot of nerve.
And I just want to say, to clarify for the audience, like, when you join the church, like, you are sitting in a room full of people. It's like, this typical Sunday service.
Basically,
right?
like a private session with all the deacons and ministers.
Well, but before that, it's where everybody gathers.
Yeah.
You're having church, just like typical, just like a normal church, Amish church service, I should say. And then sometime during the service, like, all the deacons will get up. And it's like they go upstairs to the upstairs of the house, and all Amish have an upstairs, or majority of them have an upstairs. And they go to a private room, and then anybody that unspoken is usually, you don't even say anything. Anybody that is planning on joining the church, like a young person, they get up and they follow the deacons upstairs, and then there's this, like, there's a process in place where they do that for so many weeks. I guess
8 times.
8
so
times.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, yeah. And then at the end of that, there's a ceremony where they baptize, right?
Yeah.
They sprinkle a little bit of water, and so that's how you join the church. But there's a lot of information that's being given in those private rooms. Yeah. We can't disclose that information. It's private.
Confidential.
I'm kidding. It's honestly, it's just about the church, the rules, all of that stuff. It's not like a secret society or anything like that.
I was always curious what it was about, because my parents, they went through it all, but they wouldn't talk to us about it because we weren't church members. So they're like, once you join church, you'll find that out. So anyone that is a church member will not talk to you about it unless you are a church member, because that is in their church. That is like top level stuff. Like, you earn that by joining church. That is the only way you find that information out. It's almost like they're trying to bait you into joining church. Like, you're so curious about it that you're like, ooh, I want to join church just to find this out. Like, maybe it's better. Like, maybe life is actually better once you're in there, which obviously probably is not. I don't know. I never was in there, but I would dare say it's not better.
Well, based on a lot of other testimonies that are floating around out there, and people that we know that have left after they've joined church. Like, we have family members that have left after they've joined, and definitely gets to be more intense after you join, because now you're bound to the rules, and you'll have preachers showing up at your house. Like, I'll just share a little bit about when I was being a rebel and not obeying the church rules. My dad got disciplined. Grandpa got disciplined because of it. So, because I wasn't a member, so they couldn't discipline me, but they could discipline him. So. Oh
my gosh! Anyway. Yeah, I don't know if I should say this or not, but we are planning on trying to get one of our friends on that had joined the Amish church and then left. So. Hopefully one of the next episodes we have a former church member on.
Yeah, we got a lot of, it is wild. And this just goes back to the audience. Thank you for your support, because I thought maybe a few people would watch this. And, like, we've gotten so much support, and people want to get on the podcast. And so if that's you and you want to get on the podcast, even if you're not former Amish, we will look at your story and give you an answer, yes or no. And we would love to hear from you. So go ahead and email us. The email is in the description. So you can email us and request to be on the podcast. So we would love to hear from you. So thank you for that. And yeah, we got a lot of interesting interviews coming up that are going to get more into detail about this.
Definitely do. Also, one of your friends asked a question after I was on the first episode. They said they want to hear about how I got my license.
Oh, how you got your driver's license? So yeah, we can go back into you left. What was it like after you left? So you shared a little bit about that. It was like very depressing because you're having to what I heard is like you're having to adjust to the new way of living, which
I was transitioning or whatever.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely it's a hard transition.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, you go to like, I got to get my driver's license, and most kids
First
leave
step,
without a
Get your
birth
social security number first. No, actually, yeah, your birth certificate first. Which the birth certificate isn't that hard. Or the copy of the birth certificate. I still don't
Yeah.
have my original.
So your
'cause-
parents still have the original birth
Yes,
certificate?
they do. But I do have a copy, and it's gotten me everywhere I needed to go so far. And then the next step is social security card, and it is unbelievably hard to get a social security card in the U.S.
That's not a bad thing. I mean,
It
you don't
is
need
not a
Social
bad
Security.
thing at all.
I'm just kidding. I'm not recommending that you don't need a Social
You do if you
Security.
want a
I'm
driver's
just
license.
totally kidding.
Yeah, it is a good thing that it's so hard. But I knew I had a social security number because my parents, all of us kids have social security numbers,
Okay.
but we didn't have the card. So when I left, I knew I had a card, or I knew I had a number, but I just went and applied for a card. I didn't know what I was doing, basically. I went and applied for a card. They needed all this information. I gave them all of it. They're like, they can't give it to me. But they can't give a card to me with just that information. But they did give me my social security number, which I didn't have before. So I was like, yep, this is exactly what I need. So I filed for a new social security number. I filed as if I had lost my old one.
Okay.
So I already had my number. So I just put my number in and was like, I need a new one because I lost my old one.
Uh-huh.
So on my record, if you look on my record, I've already lost one social security card. The way it looks. I haven't actually, but that's the way it looks. And then after...
to get around the around the system, because to back up a little bit, like the reason why you're having to do this is because, like,
for my driver's license.
Yeah, for your driver's license, but you have a social security card, but why are you applying for another one?
Yeah, like I have, like the system, well, we're ex-Amish, they don't understand.
Well, no,
they don't understand.
But tell the audience why you're applying for another one. Like, why didn't you just use the original one?
Because I didn't realize I didn't have a card. I knew I had a number, but I didn't.
Where was the card?
I didn't have the card. It was just a number. I don't know how the Amish get numbers without cards.
But your parents have the card.
They have an actual card?
Oh, I bet they do. I bet they do.
So they have my lost social security card.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I didn't know they had a card.
Okay. That's why I was prying. That's why I was saying, like, share with the audience where the card's at. Basically, what I was trying to say. So,
I knew they had a number, but I didn't know they had a card because I saw, like, one year they did taxes and they had their tax papers lying out, and I saw all of our social security numbers.
Okay.
So I knew we had social security numbers, but I didn't know we had cards.
Gotcha.
They probably do have cards, but I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I just, in my mind, I was like, okay, I don't have a card. I need a card. I didn't associate the number with the card. I didn't know the card came with your number on it.
Okay.
So all I needed was a card. So I applied for a card, and then they came back with, they can't give me a card, but here's my number. It's like, okay, I lost my card. Here's my number. Give me a new card. So I got around it like that, and I got my social security card after 10 weeks. I was so happy when I got that thing. Like, so happy. And then it was time to apply for a driver's license. So I got my permit. It was not hard at all. Just go in, answer the questions. I studied a lot, and I passed it no problem. But driving was a completely different story.
Okay.
It was so hard for me to get my driver's license. So hard. I didn't even have to do parallel parking. Like, I didn't have to learn that. And it was unbelievably hard for me to get it. Like, I didn't understand how lights worked. I never, like, the towns we lived near didn't have lights growing up. I didn't know. I knew red was stop and green was go, and that was about it.
Wow.
So I had to, like, teach myself. Like, I Googled, like, how lights work, and I studied those lights and the yield signs and the merge signs. Like, I studied that to try and get better at it. And I have never told anyone how many times I actually took my driving test, but it was too many times. It was so often.
So how many times was it?
I don't know. 7 times.
7 times. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
7 times. The 7th
new
time I got it.
information
Oh my
heard right
gosh.
here.
Yeah. Yeah, so
that's awesome. Good for you, though. But she's
after I got in, ever since I got that, I'm like, every envelope I get in the mail, because you have to have like proof of address and everything to get your license. And for me, I had to set up a bank account and do it without a driver's license. So I had to go find a bank that would take your information without a photo ID. Set up a bank account so they could send me envelopes so I have proof of address and all of that. Like, you have to go through all of that. And ever since I got my license, every time I get a letter with my name and my address on, I'm like, this is precious.
yeah.
It took a lot of hard work to get to the point where I could get my own mail with my own address. So yeah, I might keep too much of my mail, but don't judge. It was hard getting.
So can you still make it in America? I think so.
Oh yes, you can. If you have a little bit of determination and grit, then you can definitely make it in America.
So then you start driving, and I mean, you've been driving now for a while. Yeah,
I got my license in October of 2021. So 6 months after I left the Amish, I got my license. So yeah, it didn't take that long. It just took a lot of tries. It got pretty discouraging. But one thing is, I got my license in Iowa, which is a lot more lenient with how often, like, you can literally come in 7 days in a row and fail 7. Like, you can come in, if you fail a driving test, you can come in 24 hours later and try again. With no coaching or anything.
That's awesome.
And that is how I got 7 driving tests in such a short amount of time. Because I got my permit in the beginning of August, and 2 months later I got my driver's license.
Wow.
After 6 failed and 1 successful attempt.
Do you hear that determination? Just for her to not give up. Because everything that she's doing up to that point is like super uncomfortable. I mean, I know that because of me leaving, but also for the audience, like, it's super uncomfortable for you, but then you just keep trying until you pass. But then you pass, and you're having to learn how to actually drive.
Yeah.
I mean, you're up to that point, you haven't driven a whole lot, right?
Not more than I should have.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the very first time I live near Rochester, Minnesota, and I don't know, like that, it's not a big city, but I always call it a city because I wasn't used to, there was like a population of 120 grand, and the very first time I went through that town, I didn't know how lights worked. I had a left turn light, and the arrow was green. I went, and there's like, you know how there's like a median between, like there's 2 one-way lanes, and I drove into like the wrong lane, like I was driving against traffic.
Well, you're
so I had to, like, I drove in there, someone honked at me, and I backed out quick into the other lane.
That's all right. I've taken many one-ways because I didn't realize, and so have many other people. And I just, you know, I bet you there are people out there that can really relate to your story about how many attempts that it took for you to get your license. So leave that in the comments below. How many attempts it took for you to get your license, and yeah, if you just keep at it, you'll succeed.
Yeah, definitely. I knew that once I got my license, like, a lot of things would be a lot easier.
Because then you can drive. And I mean, are you working at this point? Like, how are you working to
I was
survive?
Cleaning houses. I had to find friends that weren't, like, I had to find friends that were either going in the same direction or that had, like, off, and then I had to pay them to take me to these places.
Okay.
Like, I had to basically hire a driver everywhere that I went, and that made for not a lot of money to spend on extra things.
I was gonna say, because you're already, like, starting from absolute scratch, and you're really depending on the people that have left before you that make some very quick friendship relationships to where hopefully they can help you. And I'll say most of the people that leave, like, I mean, I had so many people like help me out after I left, because once you leave, the people that left before you, they know what it's like.
It's like an unspoken rule that if an ex-Amish needs your help, you help them.
Yeah. And that's within the ex-Amish community. Yeah, that's
within the ex-Amish community. Which we all try to be like everyone else once we leave, but we all know what it's like to leave and start over, so... Yeah,
that's why like these conversations are like they're like a huge reminder for me from where I came from, because I'm out of the community now for 15 years, something like that, and it's like it's now become so far removed from my lifestyle that it's sometimes hard to remember the way we grew up. I mean, it really is. Not that I ever forget the way that we grew up. And I also want to just mention like the way we grew up, I'm like super thankful for that.
Same.
And for a long time I wasn't, but I began to realize there are a lot of great values that have come out of that, and so I'm just hanging on to those, and the rest of the stuff we'll leave that behind.
Yeah. I feel like the longer you leave, the more your current life kind of blanks out. Like, you never forget that, you never forget the things you learned, but your life kind of blanks out the things that you don't practice. It's just like a habit. The less you do it, the less you'll think about it.
Yes.
And it's that way with the Amish life. Like, you leave, the further away you get from it, the harder it is to remember. For me, it's still, I'm like, it's almost 3 years that I left now, and every time I think about it, I'm like, almost 3 years. That seems like a long time, but then I look at you, I'm like, okay, I still have a long ways to go. But yeah, it's...
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how fast that time flies.
I know.
And then the growth and the change that happens in that time frame. And I look back, I see what you're going through, and it's such a great reminder of what it's a reminder of what I went through when I left. I mean, it's like a refresher. Like, and man, I forgot.
It's also like the language. When I left, and even when I was still Amish, I always, like, when I was planning on leaving, like right before I left, I was like, okay, if I leave, German is always going to be my language. Like, of course, I'll speak English to the people that don't understand German, but, like, Pennsylvania Dutch or German is always going to be my language. Like, if I'm around other ex-Amish, we're going to speak German.
Yeah.
I left, 2 months after I left, I moved in with my brother, and everyone spoke English. And I was like, okay, I feel a little bit out of place here. So I started speaking English, and now I speak all English unless there's an instance where I'm trying to say something that not everyone is supposed to understand. Then I will speak German, but German is, once I get into the groove of it, so in the case where I go home to visit my family, we speak German, because they would not really like it if we didn't. Like, they think the reason we speak English when we're around them is because we're proud, which is not the case.
Yeah.
We don't speak English because we're proud. We speak English because it's the language we're now used to.
Yeah.
And if I do go home to visit them, I start speaking English. I can get into the flow of it pretty quick, to the point where getting back to English is a little bit, like, it's a lot easier for me to fall back into the German than it is to fall into the English, if you know what I mean.
So now it's easier for you to transition back. And I just want to point this out because the audience, like, a lot of them didn't realize we don't speak the same language when we're Amish. Some of them do, but people are always freaked out when I say that I have more than one language, because the Amish have their own language. It's not really, it's called Pennsylvania Dutch, but it's like a mix. Like, you can't, there's no translation for it.
Pennsylvania Dutch, to be specific, because it's, okay, so they got it from High German, what they call High German. Like, they got it from German, and they kind of warped the words and
it's kind of become
gave
its own
their
thing.
own versions, and now it's just a language that you can't find in a dictionary.
But you're saying when you go back home right now, back to your parents, because your parents are still Amish, it's easier for you to switch back to the German or to the Amish way of speaking than it is to the English.
So say if I'm there, like it'll take me a couple sentences to get used to speaking it again, and then once I leave, like if I'm there for a couple hours and that's all I speak is that language, then once I leave and I want to talk to someone in English again, I have to watch myself so I don't mix in German words again.
Wow.
So like when I go back, it's very easy for me to just go right back to speaking German solid. But then once I leave there again, it's a lot harder for me to go from speaking German to speaking English again. Like I have to watch myself that I don't mix my German words in there.
Yeah.
So like I think it all comes back to the base of it's the language I was used to, and it's hard to get rid of that language. Like, I'm not trying to get rid of it, but it's hard to, like, just wash it out of your system, basically. Like, once it's stuck in there, like...
Yeah, I mean, I will say that over time, if you don't use the language, it will slowly start to slip away.
Yeah.
And I try to use the language as much as I can because, like, I don't want to lose that language. I mean, I don't think I'd ever completely lose the language, but I do feel like I could lose a lot of the words and a lot of the, like, I can switch back to it pretty easily. And I think the audience would actually like to hear us speak some of it just so that they can verify that we're not fraud Amish people trying to go viral on YouTube or TikTok.
One of these. Oh my goodness.
So
imagine.
So go ahead.
I was gonna say, imagine pretending to be ex-Amish to go viral.
There are a lot of people on. I will say there are a lot of people on YouTube and TikTok, and it's always funny to me. And I know it is this way for a lot of other people. Like when you're Amish. I mean, you could spot another Amish from a mile away. So it's like when somebody gets on YouTube or TikTok pretending to be Amish, it's just hilarious because it's hilarious, and it's also like, okay, seriously, dude, like you didn't do very much research to even know what the dress code is, and some people just don't know, but there's like very specific things that you can pick out from someone that's trying to be Amish versus someone that's actually Amish and grew up in that way. So there's a lot of bad movies made about the Amish. Someone
asked if those movies and reality shows, Amish movies and reality shows, are real or if they're acting. I have not watched a lot of them, but the ones I have watched, like one popular one is Return to Amish and Breaking Amish. Those are not real. Okay, you can watch them, but they're not real. That is not, like, some Amish might live kind of like that, but Amish life is not like that. Yeah. I watched some of it and I was like, I can't even watch it. This is not real.
Yeah, so Jeremiah Raber, that's on, he was like one of the first ones to go on Breaking Amish, and I used to hang out with him some in Ohio, and I'm just like, seriously, like, this is such a, like, it's such a production show. It's not at all what it's like. I mean, I shouldn't say not at all what it's like. It's there are some experiences that the Amish have that they put in the show, but yeah, it's a reality TV show. What do you think?
You think that stuff actually happens?
I can't speak for how they put it together, but I can speak from my experience.
Even books, Amish books. So one or two popular authors that like to write Amish books they were by the way never Amish. They're just English authors writing books about how they think Amish live, I think, is Wanda E. Brunstetter and Beverly Lewis. So if you want to read some fantasy Amish books, go read those. I used to read those, and man, I would laugh at them because they're nothing like the Amish. Like, it's supposed to talk about how, like, Amish live and everything, and is not at all like they live.
Yeah, and the reason why we're sharing that is not to bash.
Not to bash. They are good books. Like,
yeah,
I loved reading them, but it's funny as an actual Amish person to see how the world sees us, sees the Amish. Like,
yeah,
because some people are like, okay, they have hundreds of questions. Like, they don't want to ask all these questions, but they have so many questions. I'm like, ask them. I don't care. Ask them. Like, we want to know what questions you have about. We don't know what to question.
Yeah, I mean, we live the lifestyle, so it's like second nature.
Yeah.
So it's not necessary. I mean, some of the things you're questioning why they do it, like, and it really goes back to like, well, this is how Grandpa did it, and Grandpa's grandpa did it, and so. Some of those things they don't even have the answer for, and that's why when you begin to question it, you begin to realize that
a whole book.
Well, it just begins. You begin to realize you don't fit in because you're not supposed to question all the rules, and so.
Yeah.
But I will say, like the people that from the outside looking in doing research, if you're someone that's doing research on the Amish and you're trying to figure out how they live, it's. Just know that you can spend endless hours trying to figure out how they live, and you're probably still going to miss a lot of details. Yeah. And so just be aware of that. I think some people don't dig very deep, and they just kind of see the surface, and they put that information out there, and it's not very well put together.
Yeah, even some of them that do dig deep, they'll like get a lot of it, but then there's these little details that you see and you're like, that would never float in an Amish community.
Yes.
It's just the littlest details that, and I'm sure like a lot of like the world wouldn't notice it because they don't know any better, but just the little things that you're like, that wouldn't, like, no, Amish wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
For example, like what shoe you wear. An Amish person would never wear white shoes.
Yeah,
like,
the way we grew up.
The way we grew up.
Yeah.
There are Amish that would wear white shoes.
Yeah.
Yes, there are. But the way we grew up, my family wouldn't be caught with a white shoe to save their life. Like, out of the question. Even white socks. My family, church where I grew up in, they can't even have white socks. My mom someone gave them a whole pack of white socks. And she gave them to me because they couldn't wear them.
Yeah.
They're white.
Yeah.
And sometimes she like takes color dye and dyes them, but still they can't wear white shoes or white socks.
Yeah, I think Lovina had mentioned this earlier as well. You had mentioned this earlier that if you have questions, please feel free to comment on the video and ask those questions. We're not offended by any question that you ask. Seriously, you can type out 100 point, to use a spreadsheet and get out 100 different questions you have about the Amish and submit that.
Put it up on the screen.
We do not mind at all. I know there's probably some Amish that do. The reason why we say is you're not allowed to question is when you're an Amish within the community, you shouldn't be questioning their rules. An outsider, all I remember from growing up as an Amish kid is like, we welcomed outsiders asking questions.
Outsiders asking questions was our cup of tea. We were just proud to answer all these curiosity points that everyone had about the Amish.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of, so one of my friends sent me a whole list of questions that she had, that she wanted answered. And one of them was being a UGC creator. That is basically being a content creator. And she asked if Amish could still be content creators. Amish cannot be content creators. They don't have phones. And yes, that no phones, no electricity policy, that is solid. That's not just optional.
Yeah.
Like, she asked too if that's optional or if that's just something you live by. That is not optional. There's not some Amish that will have electricity and some that won't. Like, some communities, like, what a person, as the Amish don't do something as one person. They do it as a community. So if an Amish person can do something, the whole community, the whole church can do it.
Well,
So
they vote on that.
yeah,
though.
so they have to vote on it. Like the church has to decide. They have to have votes whether or not it's good or bad. And then if the good votes outweigh the bad, then they'll do it.
Yeah.
And that's something like, yes, you might find an Amish church that has generators, for example, because the whole church agreed that having generators isn't bad.
Yeah.
But then, for example, the church I grew up in, we were strictly no generators, no nothing. You couldn't even pack your meats and vegetables and put them in someone else's freezer. We could not do that.
We were allowed to do that.
We were not allowed to do that. We canned our meat, like everything had to be canned. So the only way we could have any frozen fruits, vegetables, or meat or anything would be if an English friend of ours would like bring it to us. And we couldn't keep it frozen, but they could like bring it to us because the only time we had fresh meat was during the winter when it was cold enough to butcher.
Wow, that's wild. I didn't. So we could. I mean, a lot of Amish communities have community freezers, but we didn't have a community freezer. We had a little bit of space in the neighbor's freezer that they would allow us to use. Now we did not keep a bunch of meat in there. That was like we go to the store, we buy ice cream.
Yeah.
There's some leftover ice cream. We take it to the neighbors, put it in the freezer until next time, so on and so on. Like, so we didn't keep like fruits and vegetables or anything like that in the freezer and make it a daily thing. Yeah. But we did have a little bit of freezer space if we needed it.
We did not, because we had our ice house where the Amish, if they can't afford it, they have their own ice house, and then every winter they cut up ice blocks out of their pond and they put it in their ice house, and then that's the stuff they use to keep their food cold during the winter or during the summer. Is they have the ice house, and then they usually have like a small ice box which is usually a refrigerator that quit working.
Yeah, somebody donated a broken refrigerator.
Someone donated them a broken refrigerator. They'll use that and put ice chunks in and then put their food in there to keep it cold. And I know one winter my parents figured out a way to get around that no freezer rule. So we had a good friend, English again, that had a freezer, and he knew these rules and everything. And so he was like, well, you know what? Like, just package the meat and give it to me. Like, he brought us a cow to butcher and everything. Yeah. He didn't want the meat, but he's like, okay, butcher this cow, package the meat, and give it to me. And we did that. And then he just brought us the meat whenever.
Wow, that's so crazy.
Because we didn't pay for it or anything. It was his free will. So we can't deny if a totally, completely non-Amish person comes up and offers us something, like, say they give you a battery toy, which in my community is a no-go. They give you one, you can keep it for a certain amount of time, but only if someone gives it to you. You can't buy it. It goes the same way with a trampoline. If someone gives you a trampoline, you can keep it. Our church couldn't have trampolines, or we can't buy them. But if someone gives you a trampoline, you can keep it. So someone once, when I was a little kid, someone gave us a trampoline. So we could keep it. We kept it until it wore out, but we couldn't go buy one.
So it's the transaction, just so people understand.
The paying for the paying for it is not
is a big no-no.
Yeah.
And that doesn't go to say that they can receive everything and anything.
Yeah, they can't.
They they're really strict on what they will receive. Like, for example, you can't give them a car. They're not ever going to use a car. No. You can't give them, I don't know, you can't give them a tractor. You can't give them, they would consider that too worldly. And you're also, like, talking about, like, your community.
Yeah, it's just so I'm completely talking from my point of view standpoint. So
yeah, well, it's your community, but also the way that you grew up, because you're no longer associated with the community.
Yeah,
a lot of people have I get called Amish all the time. I'm no longer considered Amish because I've removed myself from the community. I'm not associated well, I mean, I still have family in the community, but I'm not like, I'm not a part of the church, so I'm not necessarily considered an Amish person anymore from the Amish standpoint. Now the world looks at me as like, or the outside community looks at me as like, you're Amish because that's the way I grew up. Yeah. But we're considered ex-Amish once we leave.
The Amish don't call us ex-Amish. They call us, or I know, like the community where I come from, they wouldn't call us ex-Amish. They just plain call us English. I was like 10 years old when I learned what ex-Amish means.
Yeah,
because my uncle, your brother Mosia, them and their family left, and they had come to visit one time, and I was talking about how they went ho gone.
Yeah.
Anyone asking, that means you left Amish, you went English. And one of their kids was talking about how they're ex-Amish. I'm like, you're what? And she's like, ex-Amish. Like, I had to ask Mom what that means. And she told me, and that is when I learned what ex-Amish means. Okay. So they don't even call us ex-Amish. Ex-Amish would be too worldly. We're just ho gone.
Yeah.
Ho gone. Lappy.
there's the German word. There's the Amish language right there. We'll exchange a little bit of conversation at the end of the podcast, so stick around for that. But is there anything else that you feel like you want to share with the audience that you've experienced? Even, I mean, there's one thing to leave the Amish community, and then there's another thing to like leave the area that you grew up in, the area that a lot of your friends might stick around even after they leave, because everybody's kind of becomes their outside community. We talked about that in the first episode, where people leave, but they don't really leave. They just change clothes. Now you've moved to Texas. You're close to a big city.
I feel like moving to Texas was finally my actual leaving point. Like, yes, I left the Amish, and I left the area where I grew up in, but I left that and moved right into an ex-Amish community. Basically, what? Like, they don't call themselves an ex-Amish community, but that is definitely what they are. And a lot of the people in there do not have and I'm not saying this to say you guys are bad, because you know who I'm talking about if you're watching. Those people. I'm just saying there's a lot of people in that community that they don't know. They don't want to move on. They don't want to move out on their own away from ex-Amish. Because there's a difference between leaving the Amish and leaving the ex-Amish. Because Amish are it's so ingrained in them to live in a community. Everyone around you knows you just doing the same thing as you. And then if you leave, you're drawn towards that. So you want to live in an area where there's people who know you. There's like people who know what you've been through. And then when I moved down here to Texas, like, yeah, you guys are still here, but you're like, you and Kat, your wife, are two people compared to a whole bunch of people that I knew in Minnesota that was our community. Yeah. So when I moved down here, I feel like that was finally finally the moment where I just let go and decided to live life without the stability of others. Because live life free. I wasn't living it as in depending on someone else to like bring me companionship or whatever. Yeah. Like, yes, I still have friends there, but I would recommend for them to move somewhere away and see what life is actually like without so many ex-Amish around, because it's way different. It's different if you have the people you have around you make a huge difference. Yeah. So if you have a lot of ex-Amish people around you that don't ever plan on like leaving the ex-Amish version of the world, then you're never gonna leave that either. Yeah. So I think a lot of people can relate to that, because even families that grow up in a small town, a lot of people end up staying in the small town, never going out, stepping out and going after that dream that they have. Okay. And just being tied down to the family. So
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that maybe in a different way, not coming from the Amish community. So what would your advice be for people that want to break out of that and just
go?
Just
go. Like, stop like overthinking it. Just go. Just leave.
But what
it
if
will
it's
work
like
out.
what if it's
super uncomfortable?
Yeah, there's like
uncomfortable doesn't hurt you.
But what if it does?
Well, and you can also never break free from what's holding you back without hurting. You have to go through a healing process when you do that.
So you think it's healing, or it's dealing with some of the hurt or the pain that you've had in your past in order to break free from that and step out? Like, if, let's say there's a person that's afraid, they're just afraid of, like, stepping out into the unknown. Like, there's no promises.
They're just scared of what will happen if they step
what will
out.
happen.
Yeah.
Like, and then let's say they do and they have a really bad experience. Like, how do you recover from that?
You try again.
Just go again. Just go move somewhere else I would say so. Like, so I left the Amish. I moved to the ex-Amish part of the world where there are a lot of ex-Amish. And leaving the Amish was very liberating. But then I got into the ex-Amish part of the world and I didn't like my life. I mean, I didn't hate it, but there were a lot of things about my life that I didn't like. I wanted to change. And I always wanted to move away from everyone. I just wanted to move away from all of the ex-Amish, somewhere where people don't look at me as like, you're ex-Amish, you're never going to amount to much. Yeah.
And I moved to Texas. And thankfully enough, I didn't have a bad experience, but I would say if you do that and you have a bad experience, like, can it hurt to try again?
Well, I mean, I would, this is just my opinion, but if it goes back to what you were saying originally was, it's all about who you surround yourself with. So if you do that, you try that, and you have a bad experience, look at who you surrounded yourself with. Because if you're trying to go into the community in which you grew up on in a different city, probably going to have the same experience. So you need to go to places that are around people that hold you accountable, but also maybe a little bit uncomfortable for a while, because you've been very uncomfortable here.
Okay, if y'all ever want to, like, get your feelings hurt but still feel good at the same time, just come hang out with Enos. He will be very blunt about what you need in life, which I'm very thankful for. He's the one person I can trust to tell me exactly how things are and what he thinks about them, and I can't just gloss over the facts when he's around. I mean that in a good way.
Well, thank you. I've had a lot of people that were kind enough to do the same thing for me, so I say, like, if you have a friend, and that is a friend that says they're your friend, but they don't correct you if you go wrong, then they are not really your friend. They like to be around you, but a true friend will actually tell you when you need to change, when you need to become a better person, and that also comes into moving away, trying to start over in life. To always remember that you take yourself with you when you go. Yeah.
So if you move and it all goes wrong every time, maybe start looking at yourself. Because I had to do that. A lot. Was maybe it's me. Maybe I need to change instead of trying to change everything around me.
Yeah, and I think it's also the people that are speaking into your life, and thankfully I can do that because I've had so many people that have done that to me in a very graceful way. So I think it's not just like allowing somebody to speak into your life that's like not able to do it in the right way, because there's also a way that's just like hurtful.
Yeah.
And it's not helpful.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, well, this person may have told me the truth, but I feel way worse than I did before, and I'm having to recover from that. So the people that have spoken into my life have just been super graceful in the way that they communicated that. Sometimes I just need somebody to tell me directly, hey, like, this is what's going on. Like, you need to change and, straighten up. So, but I think, I think it's definitely the people that you surround yourself with, and there are so many amazing people all over the place. So wherever you go, I don't know what that light was doing right there, but maybe it's signaling that this is getting to be a long podcast.
It's turning into a part 2.
We did promise that we would have a little bit of a German conversation. So I don't know how this is going to go, but we'll have a conversation, then we'll interpret it so you guys know what we said. And for the people that already know the German, because there's a lot of people listening that already know, so they'll know what we're saying. So das Ding ist, unsere Audience kann uns nicht verstehen gerade now. Sie können even Google oder YouTube oder any von den Plattformen können nicht verstehen, was man sagt. Und ist anyhow es weiß, wie für das Translator is non-Amish is.
Und ist das Glanhen von der Amish,
Yeah, but even Apple's net Ukvox in the Amish settlement is...
But can dictionary hat die language then?
Yeah.
Man kann Bibel as hen.
Okay.
So der hat ein Bibel die door language drin hat.
Oh, wow.
Es ist halt hart fürs Lesen alles, aber es ist die language. Aber ich glaube, es Trivia ist bei Amish. Amish und nem Trivia, aber in Norwegian.
All right. Well, that was our short conversation. So what I said is, I at first said that the audience can't understand what we're saying right now, and I don't know that there is like Google or YouTube or any platform that can translate the words that we're speaking. And then Lovina responded with,
you asked if there's someone that is out there that could translate that didn't grow up Amish. That
did not grow up Amish, if they could translate it. And then you said what? I mean,
I don't think there is, unless someone that was like that didn't grow up Amish would be like around Amish a lot and would learn it, but even then it would be really hard for them to, because I know we had friends that did, like, they were around us enough that they could like understand some of it. Well, but there's no dictionary out there. You can't find this language in a dictionary. The Amish do have Bibles with this specific language in it.
You were saying that in German as well. Yeah. So just so people know, like, also for you, like, I can't speak Spanish, but if I'm around people that speak Spanish and I read the body language and everything that's going, it's amazing how much you can pick up just from that. And then there's, obviously, within the Amish language, there's certain words like YouTube, Facebook, there's certain words that are also like just your normal words that we would use. We don't have a German word for that, or at least not that I'm aware of that we would use. So there's certain words that you would pick up on if you heard a conversation, and you may be able to kind of track what they're talking about. But I do remember there's a lot of people that we work for when I was a kid, like doing construction, they did not want us speaking anything other than English when we're on the job site, because they didn't want us speaking a language that they can't understand. And so that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate your all support, and we're so grateful that you guys are subscribing, liking the videos, sharing them, and we just ask that you continue to do that. I had mentioned that we have our audience is growing, and we have a lot of people watching that aren't subscribed, so we would appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button and also hit the like button. Just really helps us out. We're hoping to continue to grow this audience. And we're hoping these conversations are helpful for you guys and you're getting a lot out of it, because that's our heart behind it, is to share this information, to help people along the way. Hopefully have it entertaining, a little bit funny, and please let us know if we're doing a good job with that. And we thank you for your support. We'll see you in the next video.